African leaders have marched, spoken, written books, and hosted conferences all in the name of unity. But somehow, here we are in 2025, and the same old fights are still happening. Take this latest mess between Mali and Algeria. Just a few days ago, things got really heated. Algeria shot down a Malian drone, and not just any drone, a military one worth around $30 million. Algeria said the drone crossed into their airspace, but instead of sending a warning or contacting Mali, they blew it up. Now Mali is furious. Their military leader, Assimi Goita, and even President Traoré are speaking out. They say this wasn't just about airspace, it was disrespectful, an attack even, and honestly, they might have a point. If you really believe in peace between nations, would shooting first be your first move? But here's the big mystery. Was it really just about airspace? Could Algeria have had another reason? Something they haven't told the world yet. Late at night on March 31st, 2025, something strange happened in the skies over the desert in northern Mali. A high-tech drone, made in Turkey and used by the Malian military, was flying a mission near the edge of the country, right by the Algerian border. It was out there on a serious job, tracking down a group of dangerous terrorists hiding in the area. Everything seemed to be going according to plan, until out of nowhere, the drone dropped from the sky. It didn't just crash, someone shot it down. And soon after, the Algerian army came forward and said, "Yeah, that was us." According to their side of the story, the drone had crossed about 2 kilometers into Algerian territory. They claimed it was an armed drone, and since it entered their airspace without permission, they had every right to take it out. But Mali wasn't buying that story, not even a little bit. Their military leaders said the drone never crossed the line. In fact, they believe it was still flying about 10 kilometers away from the Algerian border when it got hit. To support that claim, they pointed to where the wreckage was found. Not in Algeria, but right there in Tinzaouaten, a remote part of Mali. And here's the thing that made Mali even angrier. The drone wasn't just flying around randomly. Right before it got shot down, it had picked up a signal about a secret meeting of terrorists who were reportedly planning an attack. That drone may have had the intel Mali needed to stop them. So not only did they lose an expensive piece of equipment, they also lost a shot at taking down the bad guys. So now Mali's leadership is furious. Prime Minister General Abdoulaye Maïga didn't hold back. He flat out accused Algeria of helping terrorists, saying this whole situation proves the Algerian government is supporting people who are hurting Mali. That's a pretty bold accusation. But is it fair? Let's think this through for a second. Algeria isn't some random country with no clue about what's going on. They know all about Mali's struggles with terrorists. They've even stepped in before to help mediate peace talks. Plus, Algeria has one of the strongest, best-equipped militaries on the continent with some of the sharpest intelligence systems around. In other words, if a drone was flying out of Mali, they'd definitely know it. And here's another thing, Mali's been flying these drones for a while now. They've used them to find and deal with terrorist groups, and nobody's really made a fuss about it before. Algeria most likely knew Mali had drones in the air. So the real question is, if Algeria truly saw a problem, why not just send a warning, a message, a call, anything? Why go straight to blowing it out of the sky? These two countries aren't enemies. They're not at war. So what's the reason behind pulling the trigger on a neighbor's drone, especially one trying to stop a common threat? Something about this just doesn't sit right. Not long after word got out about the drone incident, people in Mali weren't just talking. They were out in the streets, loud and fired up. In the capital city, Bamako, over 1,000 people came together, mostly led by youth groups. They weren't just there to make noise, they were there to take a stand. To them, what Algeria did wasn't just a mistake, it was an attack, an insult, a big slap in the face. The protest was organized by the National Youth Council of Mali, a group that brings together all kinds of young people, students, activists, and future leaders. They gathered at a big conference center, waving flags, holding signs, and chanting messages of support for their country's leaders. One protester said, "We're here because we're tired of Algeria playing games. We just want a fair, honest relationship, one where we help each other fight the real problems, not each other." But this wasn't just a street protest with loud chants and banners. The drama quickly jumped to the political stage too. Mali is part of a regional group called the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, along with 2 other countries. And guess what? Those 2 didn't sit this one out. In a bold, united move, all 3 nations pulled their ambassadors out of Algeria. No backdoor diplomacy, no whispered phone calls. They dropped the news online for everyone to see. In their official statement, the AES countries slammed Algeria's actions as reckless and illegal. They called the drone takedown an attack on the whole alliance and said it wasn't just about one country, it was about disrespecting their entire partnership. The AES also said the drone was on a mission to stop a dangerous terrorist group, and by shooting it down, Algeria had basically helped the bad guys. On the flip side, Algeria hit back hard. Their government fired off a statement too, claiming that Mali's leadership, referred to as a junta of putschists, which basically means they see them as power grabbers from a military coup, was just looking for someone to blame. Algeria said Mali was making them a scapegoat for all the stuff going wrong inside the country. And then, Algeria closed its skies. Just like that, they banned all flights going to and from Mali. Mali didn't take that sitting down. They shut down their airspace too. Now, no planes can go back and forth between the 2 countries. This decision hit especially hard for Algeria's national airline, Air Algérie. Ever since Air France stopped flying in the region, Air Algérie had been the main carrier in and out of the Sahel. But with borders in the sky now closed, they're stuck. Flights are cancelled, passengers are left hanging, and the airline is losing money fast. Mali even made it official. Their aviation authority sent a message to the global flight system, called a NOTAM, letting the whole airline industry know, no flights from Algeria, no exceptions, not even for Air Algérie. Now the airline is scrambling to either find new routes or refund tickets. Neither option is cheap. Analysts say it's the regular people, the customers, who are feeling the hit the hardest. No flights, no refunds yet, no clear answers. Now imagine this, 2 neighboring countries, right next door to each other, suddenly find themselves locked in a messy political fight that's starting to feel way bigger than just a disagreement over a flying machine. That's exactly what's happening between Mali and Algeria. What started as one drone being blown out of the sky has now snowballed into something way more serious. Both countries have shut down their airspace, flights are grounded, and now both governments are pulling in international players to help. Or maybe just to make their side of the story look stronger. In Mali, officials didn't waste time. They kicked off a full-blown criminal investigation. We're talking serious charges, things like terrorism, illegal weapons, and being part of a criminal group. The prosecutor in charge didn't just point fingers at Algeria either. This is a full legal move, like laying out chess pieces before a big match. The investigation was announced as part of the government's larger response through the Alliance of Sahel States, which Mali is a key part of, and they didn't stop there. Mali also reached out to the United Nations. They sent a letter to the Security Council, not a full-blown complaint, not yet, but more like saying, hey, we're keeping receipts. According to an advisor from Mali's foreign ministry, if things get worse, that letter could turn into something bigger, like a formal request for action. Guess what? Algeria did the exact same thing. In letters dated April 7th, they handed over their own version of what happened to the UN Security Council. It was like both countries were saying, here's our side in case anyone's keeping score. But still, neither side has gone as far as officially asking the UN to step in. At least not yet. So what are these 2 neighbors actually saying? Mali is accusing Algeria of something huge, supporting terrorists, or at the very least, protecting them by knocking out a drone that was on an anti-terror mission. Algeria, on the other hand, says no way. They claim Mali violated their airspace and that Mali's leaders are just trying to stir up drama to distract from their own internal problems. Meanwhile, other groups are watching and worrying. ECOWAS, the big regional group for West African countries, has stepped in with a serious message. Calm down, talk it out, and stop things from getting worse. In their official statement, they urged both sides to use peaceful methods and work through regional or African channels to sort things out. Basically, they're trying to play referee before things really get out of hand. Still, with all the drama, the question just keeps hanging in the air like that drone did. Why did Algeria shoot it down at all? To get to the heart of that, we've got to rewind a bit. Mali and Algeria go way back to the days when both were under French colonial rule. They were both struggling to shake off the same empire, fighting for freedom, side by side in spirit. Mali became independent in 1960, Algeria followed in 1962. You'd think that kind of shared past would lead to a close friendship, right? Well, not exactly. Over the years, the relationship has been rocky, like two old friends who keep arguing but never fully break up. One of the biggest problems between them: their massive border. It stretches over 1,300 kilometers through rough, dry desert land, and it's not just a line on a map, it's a hotspot for trouble. A big part of that trouble has to do with the Traore people, a nomadic group that's been living in northern Mali for generations. They've been fighting off and on to break away and create their own independent homeland. These uprisings have happened multiple times, in the 60s, the 90s, the early 2000s, and again between 2006 and 2009. The most recent one, in 2012, blew up into a major crisis that brought in extremists and turned the north into a conflict zone. Algeria's role in all this: it keeps jumping in to try to play peacemaker. Since the 1960s, Algeria has stepped up 4 times to broker deals between Mali's government and the Tuareg rebels. The biggest attempt came in 2015, after years of fighting. That's when Algeria helped push through what became known as the Algiers Accord. The agreement was supposed to be a game-changer. It had backing from the United Nations and called for former rebels to be folded into Mali's army, plus more autonomy for different parts of the country. In theory, it looked solid. But in practice, not so much. The peace didn't last. Things got even more tense after Mali went through 2 military coups, one in 2020, another in 2022. The new military government wasn't as open to outside influence as the old civilian one. They didn't want Algeria calling the shots anymore, especially when it came to internal affairs. And Algeria, it didn't step back. In fact, it started holding secret meetings with rebel leaders, without even telling Mali's government. That move really set things off. By December 2023, Mali was done playing nice. They pulled their ambassador out of Algeria and accused their neighbor of poking around where they didn't belong. Behind the scenes, things were even more complicated. Algeria has been quietly supporting groups that don't see eye to eye with Mali's military rulers. Some political, some tribal, even religious groups. Not because Algeria wants to topple the government, but because it wants to have influence. Many experts believe Algeria's real goal is to steer Mali's foreign policy in a direction that benefits Algiers. Once that happens, they'll likely ditch those opposition groups and leave them hanging. Now let's bring this back to the drone. Was it just about protecting airspace? Or was it Algeria sending a message to the military government in Bamako? Many think it ties back to Algeria's belief that their peace plan, the 2015 Algiers Accord, is still the best fix for Mali's problems. But the military leaders in Mali don't agree. They've walked away from that deal and want to do things their own way. So maybe the drone was just the match that lit a fire already smoldering for years. And while the two countries go back and forth, cutting off flights and tossing accusations, one thing is crystal clear. Unity across the region is falling apart. What do you think about all this? Share your thoughts with us in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like, leave a comment, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future updates.